Hi everyone, I'm George Jackson, executive producer and host of GovExec TV. We are here at the Qualys Public Sector Cyber Risk Conference in Tysons Corner, Virginia. And I'm sitting down for 5 questions with Jonathan Trull. He is Chief Information Security Officer over at Qualys. Sir, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, challenges that you foresee. We've talked about these topics all day long at the conference, the cyber risk management responsibilities from the federal level down to state and local.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges facing our government entities. At the local state level, I think it's really about resources, access to talent, the ability to secure budget to do what they need to protect not just critical infrastructure, but just the day-to-day networks and operating systems that they're responsible for. It's a big challenge, especially when you get into, listen, a lot of the country's rural, right? And you're talking about, areas pretty far removed from where IT workers traditionally work. So I think finding, securing talent, continues to be a challenge. Now with that means, right, you've got to make good risk-based decisions about really where you're going to focus your limited resources to achieve the maximum results. And then at the federal level, I think you're looking at just massive environments, highly complex, a lot of very unique one-off systems. And that's where, again, the challenge is, right? You might have talent, you might have contractors who can help, but you just have highly diverse dynamic environments. And that really makes it important to know that you have all of your assets. You're using automation, threat intelligence, again, to risk optimize where you're going to spend your limited time to fix things.
Those highly complex, those dynamic, those diverse environments, they're also not static. The field of information technology is not static. We've been talking a lot today about this nexus between artificial intelligence and risk management. If I'm an agency, an organization, or an individual at the public sector level, and I want to lean in to that intersection, what should I be doing right now, Jonathan?
I think leaning in is exactly the right thing to do for numerous reasons. I mean, one, I think AI does have some tremendous value that it can add to security and to just IT in general in terms of people meeting their mission, right? It's come a tremendous amount of a long way through like innovation. And so where we look at the risk though is you got to make sure that it's protected, right? You're leaning in to make sure you're doing offensive security testing, vulnerability scanning. You do need to make some policy decisions about what is acceptable use of artificial intelligence, because there are some different potential ethical quandaries that can happen through the use of AI in certain circumstances. And I say that's unique for everyone's mission that they have to figure out, right? But at the end of the day, right, artificial intelligence is just another technology. I think at times we view it as this either super evil thing or the thing that's going to like solve everything. It's probably somewhere in the middle, right? And so like any new technology, the security of it, testing the code related to it, what data is going into it, what data is coming out, how do you get control over that? Those are all kind of typical processes that we would look at any system. Now, there are a few unique things with AI, I think, that are special. It's a new way of testing using like prompt injection to elicit certain types of private information. But again, our offensive security people are getting schooled up, getting trained. But if I was going to really look at one thing, it's just training your cybersecurity workforce on AI, right? The pros, the cons, how do you test it? Just making sure they're up to speed so that you can adopt this technology faster.
Comprehensive framework for securing artificial intelligence tools. Like, I look at that challenge, that mission objective for government, and I see almost a comparison to zero trust. Like, you can't just go out and buy zero trust. There's, a patchwork of solutions and technologies that you have to employ. It's heavily mission-based. So does that exist? Does there comprehensive framework for securing AI tools, does it exist?
Yeah, I think we're getting there, right? So if you look at what NIST is working on today, and you're starting kind of with the executive directives, and you're working down in policy, and now you're starting to see kind of the focus on really the technical aspects of securing AI.
Hmm.
There's also a working group, working standard related to ISO, and again, they're very much in the draft phases right now. So I think everyone's anxiously awaiting the finalization of those. But with that said, I think people are starting to develop frameworks around, is it AI embedded in a SaaS application? How do we go about protecting that? Is it built internally by us? Because then we have control of the LLM models. We're developing the code around it. So that tends to be more of like a product security focus versus a third-party risk management. And then you're starting to get into kind of working with other groups on new, what I would say, areas where maybe security wasn't traditionally pulled in. One of those is AI hallucinations, where maybe it's saying the wrong thing. And the question becomes, who's responsible for testing or putting controls in place to prevent that from happening? And I think those are a little nuanced areas where maybe the framework's not quite there yet, but I would expect within the next 3 months, we're going to see some pretty solid frameworks that you can follow, from the very beginning of the adoption, testing, rollout, use of AI.
I talked to your colleague earlier in the day, Qualys' president and CEO, Sumedh Thakar. He taught me about the differences, I guess I'll call them, between a SOC and a ROC, a Security Operations Center, and this Risk Operations Center. I'd imagine that's like part of the answer to my next question here, but how do you close that gap between what you outlined as the great potential of artificial intelligence and the possible risks that it could introduce? How do you narrow that gap at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think a risk operations center is going to play a pivotal role with AI, and again, the focus is on real time establishing the risk associated with what is AI doing, where is it used within an environment, how important is that, right? Because maybe AI used in a non-human impacting form isn't too critical to focus on, but if you're embedding AI within MRI scanning or dosing of a certain vaccine, that becomes super important, right? Because you have potential mistakes that result in human life type scenarios. And then, I think military applications are equally interesting, right? You've got both defensive and offensive uses of AI, and there are different risk profiles based on all of those. And the only group really that is perfectly situated between, the like security assurance of a solution, evaluating its business contacts and its environment, is going to be the Risk Operations Center. So it'll sit at the core of really deploying quickly using a risk-based approach.
One of my favorite parts of this community of professionals, the cybersecurity professionals, is how the OMB memos or the NIST information that gets put out becomes common parlance in the community. People just, dash those numbers and letters off like the back of their hand. And one that I wanted to talk to you about was M-25-21, or Accelerating Federal Use of AI Through Innovation. If I'm an organization that really wants to, what we talked about earlier, lean in there, what should I be doing right now?
Yeah, from a security standpoint, I would say you need to designate someone who is really going to be your risk AI person. Like they understand the technology. And I mean the depth of the computer science behind it, not just how to use it, but actually how are those models created, right? Like how does it work under the hood so they can really understand like what are the controls that they would expect to see. And then that person will take again, the kind of guidance, the frameworks, and then work that within their systems to apply it. And that is the expert. Like they're going to help onboard technology. Sometimes they'll have to say no, or no until you add these capabilities to it. But I do think you need a trained person, someone who is, in-depth knowledgeable of machine learning, generative AI, agentic AI. How does it work? How does it fit into environments? where can you add controls into that software so that it would achieve the outcomes that they're expecting. But you really need that person, I think. And then they'll start to do things like implement controls into their CI/CD pipeline as it's built into that environment. I think they'll start doing training for developers who are building on these new models so that they're building them with the appropriate amount of privacy, control, security, logging built in from the start. Because what we don't want to be is the same spot we often find ourselves, which is the stuff gets deployed, wasn't quite what we needed from a security privacy standpoint, and then we're trying to retrofit. That process never works, because it's sunk time to go back and fix those things. So we have to do that from the start. And I think being innovative and getting someone in there focused on it will help you accelerate your deployment.
Doesn't sound like a lot of fun either, but it has been really fun sitting down with you on the sidelines of the Qualys Public Sector Cyber Risk Conference. Jonathan Trull, Chief Information Security Officer over at Qualys. Sir, thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in. That was today's 5 questions for GovExec TV. I'm George Jackson. Have a great day.